The March 15th, 2022 meeting of the Carleton School District Board of Directors is called to order. Sarah, would you mind leading us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Secretary, please call the roll.
Director Zelensky.
She's not able to be here this evening.
Director Vogliano. Here. Director Slimstick. Here. Director Puskar. Here. Director O'Brien. Here. Director Apple.
Here.
Director Frank.
Here.
Director Honchar.
Here.
Director Schreiber.
Here. There's a portion of our meeting at the beginning where we invite members of the public to comment on any agenda item. Does anybody in the audience have any questions or comments about the agenda item tonight? Ms. Smith.
All right, Lisa Smith. On 4.3, this 339 guidance plan, is this something that's new?
No. It is something that the district needs to update every 5 years. And PDE just sent us information that we needed to have our plan updated by the end of March within the past few weeks. So we went through, we updated our plan using a lot of the major aspects of it that were previously in it. And they recently sent us an update indicating that our plan is not due until the end of next year. So we'll have ours done, completed, and in place well before the deadline now.
Okay, because I couldn't tell in there what was new and what was old. And who writes this up?
So the committee that works together on that is Dr. Manich, who works very closely then with the counseling team and building principals.
Okay. And then the other question I have is on 4.5, the Armstrong development. Why do we need to extend it?
The way the agreement is written is that it has timelines that are built into it for Armstrong to go through and take action to move forward along with, basically, we passed the agreement. We need, Crafting Council also needs to agree to the development process of it as well. But there's timelines built in there, and by a certain point in time, if the sale is not completed, then it needs to be extended.
Okay, and it's not been completed because Grafton doesn't want a gas station put in there and they don't know what else to put in there, so they may turn around and say no if they can't get Grafton to cooperate.
That's one angle. I think because council has a whole new makeup. I think 6 of the 7 members are brand new. So they wanted to wait until the new council was seated until they could consider it. And so the district just shared information with them. They're now thinking about it themselves. So they just needed some additional
Okay, so
time.
is it just we're stalling for time until everybody can get on the same page?
I wouldn't use the word stalling, but I think I understand what you're saying, and it's getting everybody on the same page, correct?
All right.
Any other open forum questions on agenda items? Thank you. If not, we'll move on. Under Section 2 Board, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the March 8th, 2022 meeting. Do I have a motion for that?
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. Thank you. Any discussion? If not, we'll vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay?
Look at and consider for special education. We have to consider when you qualify for services, this isn't a one-size-fits-all. We have to look at what the disability is and how it impacts them. And we also have to look at 2 other things. We have to look at free appropriate public education, otherwise known as FAPE, and also LRE, which is the least restrictive environment. So just because you qualify for services doesn't mean you automatically go into a special classroom and that's where you are all day. You want to expose the students to as much, and I say as much, general education content that's possible that they can handle. And it's different for each and every student kid. We do have an IEP team, so it's not just a one person makes that decision, it's a whole team that makes that decision together. The other thing that I want you to think about it and keep in the back of your mind is just because you qualify under a disability category that does not always dictate your services. So for example, we do have some unique cases where students qualify for speech services, but it also impacts some of their reading as well. but they may not have had they didn't test, where the test results came that they had a disability, a specific learning disability, but they also need that reading support to help them out. So we do have students that get stuff like that. We also have students that are specific learning disability, and they also have a positive behavior support plan because they might be exhibiting some behaviors. So they may also qualify for learning support and emotional support services. And we offer a full range within the district of itinerant, which is a little bit of support. Supplemental is the next category in the middle, and it's where half your days, if you think of it like that, at the high school is 2 or more periods of when you're receiving specialized instruction from a special education teacher. And then we also have placements outside of the district. We have certain schools that are able to support the students that we are unable to support within the district for various reasons. Does anyone want to take a guess at what the most common disability category is out there? It is specific learning disability. About 33% of, and that's across the Commonwealth, 33% of the students that receive services do receive, are categorized underneath the disability category of specific learning disability. December 1st, now I don't have, I have a piece of paper, like a document I'd like to share, but the December 1st count we have to do every single year. And December 1st this year, we had identified 246 students that received services. As of today, I pulled the numbers, we have 270. Now there's a couple varying factors in here. One, we've had students move into the district over the past, since the beginning of the school year, we've had about 20 students. We've had 20 students move in. We've also had some go out. And that's just a snapshot at December 1st. And I would anticipate everyone's back in school full-time, face-to-face. We are seeing an increase, as we kind of anticipated throughout the Commonwealth, that we are going to, there's going to be a lot more need for special education services, and a lot of them are qualifying too under emotional disturbance due to the mental health diagnosis that they're having. Not all, but we do have some that are qualifying. If they're not qualifying for an IEP, they may qualify for a 504 if that's deemed necessary. And the difference is going to be that they have a disability and that they also need specialized instruction and modifications. I'll talk a little bit more later about 504s. With special education, they have to meet annually, once a year. Some teams meet more than once a year, but a minimum once a year you have to have a meeting. Next page, please. Just about our staffing, just want to show you what we have here. So we currently have 2 school psychologists. They are based out of the elementaries, respectfully. Dr. Tricia Surdy is at Carnegie, and Rebecca Breathwaite is out of Crafton. With that said, we also do need their support and help up here at the high school for various situations that are occurring. Some students need to be reevaluated for services to make sure, they continue to qualify. Sometimes parents ask for additional support or additional testing, and also sometimes we also see that we don't think they no longer need the services, so they also go there. We have 15 teachers, special education teachers within the district. We have 4 at each elementary, and then the rest are up here. We have 1 transition coordinator, and that's Jerry Pape, and he works with our students that are turning 14 or that are 14 up to 21, and they look at transition services after high school. So the areas they look at are education, they look at jobs, and they look at independent living. So those are the areas that they look at, and it's different for each and every kid. Transition was part of the 339 plan, so I did talk with and work with Dr. Mantich on that as well. We have 2 speech and language therapists here that we have. There's our staff, and then our related services. So those are other services that we identify that the students may need through the evaluation process. That would be occupational and physical therapy, also vision support and hearing support. And the other category that I apologize, left off was counseling services. They are either with our school psychologist, AHN, or Wesley, depending upon what school they're at. Next page, please. I'm going to talk a little bit about 504 service agreements. I know, so I had said that if they don't qualify for an IEP, that it might deem necessary that they may meet the criteria for a 504. And that does happen in some cases. More specifically, it happens with cases with depression or anxiety sometimes. So just because a parent comes in and says, hey, here my kid has a doctor's note that says they're diagnosed with anxiety or depression, we see what type of evaluation we need to give per se. So if he's going to look at an IEP or if we're going to look at a 504. Still within the 60-day timeline, we have to evaluate and we say, is it impacting their life in some fashion? Some kids and some adults have disabilities and they're able to carry through and live normal, active lives. Others, you need to have supports in place to provide them with access to general education and their general education peers. But they also meet up to once every 3 years. I'd like to get on the cycle every year, annually, so they meet, discuss, make any adjustments, modifications. Some of the different areas that would, like I just want to put some examples up there, would be as a seizure disorder, Crohn's, diabetes. Those are medical conditions that come to us, and we don't really have a say. We have to provide those supports that will be outlined by the physician. Some of the other ones get a little grayer area, depression, anxiety. We got to look and see, is it impacting them? Some kids, they walk around, they're med management, they also have therapy going on or some type of counseling, and they're able to it's okay with them. They don't need a 504 to provide those supports. But at any given time, you might slip back in and we ought to revisit it to see how's that disability impacting their education. Next page, please. Our gifted services. I'm very proud of what we've done. We did the comprehensive plan, and Shirley Moyer at the state level reviews the gifted plan. That's part of the comprehensive plan. And Dr. Kreider, I'm sure we shared with the board, she gave us compliments and she said we needed an outstanding example of a true gifted plan. And that was, she wants to use that for training purposes across the state. And I cannot take the credit. That's Dr. Surdy and Rebecca Breathwaite and Cindy Eddy. We all worked together over the summer and during the school year to look at things. And what we did was we looked at our matrix again. So with gifted services, and I have up here, you go through an evaluation process as well. And this is on intellectual abilities, not disabilities. So this highlights a student's strengths, not their weaknesses. And how can we support their strengths? The question I always get is, can a student be dually diagnosed with a gifted and also needing special education services as well on the other end? And that's a yes. You do have some students that qualify for a learning disability, or maybe they're emotionally disturbed, or they have autism, but they also come out gifted. So that is also possible as well. Once they go through the evaluation process, if they have an IQ of 130, that's an automatic, signed, sealed, delivered. Otherwise, we look them through the matrix and we see how they fit, and it's, I can share more of that information if you'd like, but it's for kindergarten, then early elementary, and then the middle and the high school students. So they go through a matrix, they get input from the parent, the teacher, and go from there and look at other data points. The new thing for this year is the COGAT, or the Cognitive Assessment Test, Achievement Test, excuse me, and that is a group assessment. It's a screener. So what we've identified is we only have 29 students currently. We feel that we're missing some students, and typically the way students get recommended or referred to for gifted is by a parent or a teacher. So we'd like to see, what are we missing that we're not seeing? And this is a great way to do the assessment. They did it at Crafton in 2nd grade and in 5th grade. It's a large group assessment, and they can do it on the computer, and it only takes no more than 45 minutes. And Cindy Eddy said it was one of the easiest things she did. Now, is that going to always be 100% true? No, but it's a nice way to try to screen and get a broad stroke of, hey, who are we missing? Oh, we're missing this, or we're missing that one over here. And then we would then contact the family to say, hey, this is what the results were of the screener. We are recommending a full evaluation to see if your child will qualify for services. We also had, and also that way too is it's also a way where, I don't want to say you're wasting, but we're using our resources a little bit more efficiently. So if a parent would reach out and say, hey, I'm not sure if I want to do this or not, but is there a way we can give a quick screener or something? Then yes, we can do that as well. Or we might get the parent that comes up and says, I want a full-blown evaluation, please move forward with that. So that's the other thing we can do as well. But this is really nice, and we've had a lot of success so far. I think we have, I know at least 5 more students at Crafton that we're going to look at moving forward with the evaluation process. And then we're going to also look at administering it to Crafton, to Carnegie. The other reason we went with the COGAT was it's a quick turnaround, and it's going to help us identify students that we might be missing, like I said, with our English language learning population. And they're primarily housed in service in Carnegie. And other masking factors as well that might play into some things. So we're hoping to get better results with that. Next, please. Our nursing services. So I would be remiss if we did not highlight our nurses here. That's Sharon Krushkin, Jackie Beadle, and also Ashley Schaefer. And Ashley primarily works also between the two elementaries, and Jackie's there as well, and Sharon's here at the high school. They've done a ton of extras for us with COVID. They've done contact tracing. I mean, I know they talked to so many parents and guardians over the past year. It's been a lot, but they've been able to persevere. What I really like what these ladies do is they help give me some guidance on some of the services that we have for our students. They make sure we're following mandates and policies and regulations. And when we need to dive down a little bit deeper with things, they help me make sure we're pointing in the right direction and we have those resources to go off of. What they have in the past year and now this year as well, they've done mandated screenings. That was on pause because of COVID and all the contact tracing. So they're hoping to do, it's not mandated, but to get those screenings in that they have to do for the students. They work really close with the school physician. They get different organizations to come in to help with the vision and the dental screenings for students that don't have that availability or they don't have insurance. So we take care of that for them. They do vaccine clinics. And the other thing that is really big is their support and their help and understanding for their input for 504s and some of the IEPs. Some of the students that are more medically complex, they give a lot of support and guidance for that. So they are part of IEP teams as well and 504 teams. We do have some students that do require one-to-one nursing services, and unfortunately they're not able to do that because they have other responsibilities in the building. So we do contract for some of those services with other agencies. We currently have 3 students in the district that we have to contract for. Next page, please. English is a second language. So our ESL program, otherwise known as, where they're helping students that are, English is not their native language. Our population has ballooned over the past couple of years. Today I looked at it and it does fluctuate. We have currently servicing 104 students. So when someone comes in, when they register their child for school, they do a quick survey, they answer what their native language is. We have several different companies that we work with for translating and interpreting services. And then what they do is we get that survey back, the parents we then send it down to the IU and they would get screened if it says that their language is something other than English. Just because it is doesn't mean that they all automatically qualify for those services. So the AIU screens them, they come back and make a recommendation on how many periods, 1 period or 2 periods. The model that we go with here in Carlington is a pull-out model. So they are pulled out from the general education peers for English services up here at the high school and in Carnegie Elementary. If someone from Crafton qualifies for services, they are transported at no cost to them, but by the district to receive those services over Carnegie. Like I said, we have families speaking 20 different languages in our small little district, and we currently contract with the AIU for the services. And I did pull up, so screening, we've screened 61 students this school year that have come in and identified as possibly needing services. Out of the 61, 51 have qualified for services. This is a transient population, and for whatever reason, they bounce between here and a couple other districts. But like I said, today we're at 104. We're going to look at numbers again and kind of see where we need to go. I do have a lot of communication with the IU because that's who we're contracting our services with, and seeing if we need another teacher, how we can look at supporting the students differently in the district. And actually Friday is one of our service days. They are coming out to give a presentation to the staff to give that support so they know how to provide services for the students in the biology class, the math class, whatever class that would be. The most frequent language that other than English that our families speak is Arabic, and the second one is Spanish. Well, that could change. And last but not least, mental health services. This has been a hot topic, everyone's aware with COVID. So what we've looked at doing is we've looked at trying to beef up our services, and I am very proud of what a lot of the staff has been receptive to, and the faculty just in general. What we did is typically students get screened through the SAP process, and that can be by a teacher referral or a parent referral. And SAP is just saying there's a barrier that is not letting this child learn. What is it? Is it something, physical, mental, or something else going on at home? And then they would make the recommendation of what's necessary to the family. Once that's said and done, we do have things in place here. And what I like about it is we bring the services to the kids. And other places you have to go out to get the services. But they're all housed internally. So we currently have AHN, or Allegheny Health Network, their CHILL program. And it is at Carnegie Elementary. This is the second year there. And they're up here at the junior senior high school. This is our first year here. Each location has a classroom, and it's staffed by a classroom educator through AHN. What they do is they're not a teacher, but they are a therapist, but they are not looking at the role as a therapist there. They are providing some mindfulness lessons to the students and to the staff, and what they're doing is trying to be proactive rather than reactive. They run the students through a lesson once a month. So all of the English classes will roll down, or they'll go to the English classes, and they present a mindfulness lesson to them. They also partnered with Duquesne University, and I will pass this out here. They did a study with ESL learners, and they wanted to see what the effects were of it, and they had some very excellent data coming out of it. So it says, this is the abstract, it says the current project was aimed to the effectiveness of CHILL interventions for English language learners. And in the end, they also compared it to non-English language learners. And in the end, it was a win for everybody. Everyone's stress levels went down. They did a little rating scale every day, a little thermometer. Where are you? Were you at the bottom? Or are you right at the top here? And they went in and they showed them how to do it. And but we partnered with Duquesne. And what they did was they were able to present up at the National School Psychologist Conference in Boston. And they had a ton of awesome, that they were featured up there. And they had a lot of great feedback from that. So I'm going to just pass this here. We also have 2 therapists on site up here. We just got the second one up here at the high school, and we are working on getting a second one down at Carnegie. For our students, we have noticed an increase, as you can imagine, of need. And with that said, there's an increase in mental health, and there's a staff shortage again with therapists. So it seems like, bless you, everybody's jumping out of, they're moving around, going out of the medical field and the education field. So they are having some difficulties, not as quickly as we would like to get the therapists in, but we are able to get those sessions going and making sure we support the students. Crafton, we have Wesley Family Services, and it's school-based. We are looking, and I met with them mid-year to increase the services there. So that is something that's in the works. Like I said, unfortunately, it's not as quickly as we like. Some of the staff shortages are going on there. We also have the school psychologists available, should they not be anything formal. Anyways, I can speak loud. So, the school psychologists also jump in and help out. And what's nice is they do it also, if someone is doing our cyber school, they can jump in virtually and do a session there. And they've been very instrumental with helping some of the families and the students through these very difficult times. One last thing is that Carnegie is working with Awaken, and that's with Pittsburgh. And what they do is they do professional development with the staff, and they take a deeper dive into mindfulness. So this has been one of the commitments that Lauren Bachman and Carnegie have taken on for this year. So they've really been open with it. And I've had very negative feedback about the CHILL program, the CHILL rooms, for not just the students, but also for the staff. So I think that's a really nice, unique thing that we have to offer for everybody. And that is my presentation. Any questions? Yes.
Sarah, at the Essence meeting, that special meeting, you said that there was a waiting list for psychological services.
Yes.
How long is that waiting list?
It depends what agency you go with. I will tell you, we just got our second therapist up here. We had 5 families that were on hold because they didn't have another therapist. By state regulations, they can only have so many. So they were seeing, I think, like 35 or 40. And it was about a 6 weeks turnover rate. That's still, to me, it's not fast enough, but that was the best they could do. Otherwise, you go to somewhere else, to an outside placement to try to, or an outside agency to try to get that support, you're on anywhere from a 3 to 6 to 8 month wait list, which is just horrific in my eyes.
So 6 weeks is actually.
Yes, and it was only 6 weeks because they were trying to staff it with another therapist, and they had to go through the induction process through AHN, and by the time the onboarding, I should say, by the time they got here, that was the turnaround it took.
And so is the 6 months acceptable to the state?
It's not acceptable at all, but I don't know, we're in a crisis with that. And that's part of the conversation. Funny you asked that. Tomorrow, I have a liaison meeting with the IU. And Carol Clancy, who's in charge of the special education department at the state level, will be presenting. So I will have some more information because that is one of the questions is, what do we do? Everyone's, picking and pulling to try to get help and support. What can the state offer and how can they help us?
So when the school year ends, are all the kids in the waiting list serviced, or does their service go into the summer?
No, we are looking at that to extend that into the summer, that opportunities. AHN is going to be servicing students up here if families can get up here for some of the high school kids. The other alternative is that they could go to Carnegie as well. They are running an ESY program, extended school year, for students that have IEPs and qualify, but that's a separate category, so they will have staff there. But they also have asked if they're going to ask the families individually, would you like to continue services over the summer? And if so, we will be here to help provide those services for your children.
Sarah, thank you.
You're welcome.
One quick follow-up. You mentioned the CHILL program.
Yes.
I remember Mrs. Bachman saying that it made a real difference in her building when she launched it. Is the first year at the high school seeing similar results?
Yes, I asked Lexi, who's in charge of she's in charge of our children, and she's the classroom educator. And I said, give me your feedback. What's going on? I just popped in, and she said, well, she went from seeing like 6 staff members to like 48 total visits. So there were 6 visits in the very beginning. Now there's 48 visits with staff. I know they've had over 1,000 visits with students in like 1 month. Now, some kids will go in there because it's their study hall. They're able to calm back, sit back, relax. The lights are low. I don't know if ever you've had the opportunity to go in and check it out. I'd be glad to give you a tour up here someday before or after a meeting. But they're noticing an impact. Slow and steady wins the race. The more it gets out there, the more she builds a rapport with students, the more comfortable they'll be coming to her, not necessarily opening up and sharing everything, but just learning some coping skills, because these are skills that you need to be proactive rather than flipping out and being reactive. And I think that's tough for some kids now because they were at home for so long. And some of these habits that they got into died hard. So.
Thanks. Any other questions?
Did you raise your hand, Kate?
No.
I was like, yes, sir. Sorry.
How are we going to pay for it?
What?
How are we going to pay for it?
Thank you, Mrs. Hoffman. And I think just evidence of the increased number of special education students from December through present time, the increase of 46. The number of 504s that have been written over the past few months as well, and then the ESL evaluations that continue to take place. These types of services that we provide are very labor intensive. It does require a significant amount of work that we rely upon from school counselors, from our school psychologists, special education teachers as well. So very thankful for the continued supports that we have of those personnel to make those things happen on a day-to-day basis. So, next up, working with our preliminary budget for the 2022-2023 school year, Mr. Bilby is here to give us an update. He's been working very closely with each of the departments, working with high school staff, elementary staff as well, and is here to give us an update on where we currently stand for.
I'm going to take control.
You want to?
The reason why, unless we just keep it like this and whoever finds my error on here will be prize on it. So, no, that's not. All right. Good evening once again, so everyone. So tonight, like Dr. Kreider said, this is really your first look at the broad overview of our preliminary budget. Basically what we did when we went into the process of starting the budget this year, I had a couple of goals that I really wanted to focus on, and one of the biggest ones was to get the administrators more involved in their budgets. So we had a lot of good discussion, little arguments kind of occasionally, but I think it's really important that the budget administrators have a say in their budgets, an understanding of their budgets so that they can buy into it instead of being told this is how much you have, just go out and spend it. So it's been a really good positive experience. And then the second focus really of the preparation of this budget was to be able to look at the ESSERS grants that we have and the possible extra money that we're going to receive from the state to see what kind of tools and necessary supplies and things that we can give to the teachers to be able to support the kids that have lost the last basically 2 years. So that was our big focus, especially when we talk to the administrators. Besides the everyday expenditures of salaries, benefits, and such, and just normal supplies, what else can we do to try to bridge that gap? So that's what we have here. So once again, this is just a broad overview. Over the next couple of weeks, we will go deeper into, or next couple of board meetings, we'll go deeper into the budget. And we'll go ahead and let's start. All right. So with this preliminary budget, so basically when you take a look at the budget, you see I put down actual from 2021. So 2021, as you see, that was the year that we basically had all the shutdowns. We didn't have the full year of expenditures. And as was told during our audit presentation, we came out with a $2.8 million under budget spending. So what we did is then with the next year's budget is we were able to take the expenditures and keep them fairly flat and increase it just a short bit, the $30,879,655, and no change in fund balance. Right now, we're still in the process of evaluating where we're going to come in this year. It looks like that we are going to be possibly under budget a little bit, not as extreme that it was, because we were able to streamline down some of the costs over the especially the salaries. So next year, right now we're looking at $32,625,000 as our target of where we're going to be. The expenditures are hitting that mark. The revenues, which we'll talk about each of them in a little bit more detail, but so right now basically there's not going to be any utilization necessary of the fund balance in this. And right now the tax increase I put in here, tax increase is available up to Act 1 index. Basically right now there is no tax increase in here. But with that said, we need to really start now taking these numbers once we fine tune them and dig them down, and then look into our 5-year projection. Look at different things that we need to do for our capital projects. And before we absolutely commit to any budget increase, I like to go flat at first. We're just going to keep it there. So I just want to leave everything on the table, but right now it looks, we're looking okay. So leave it at that. The increase basically is of $1.7 million over the current year budget. And a lot of that is because of the ESSER's money that we have coming in. So basically, as we expend the ESSER's money, we're throwing that revenue into the revenue. So it's going to naturally increase the revenues to it. And also the state budget. The state budget, we all heard that there is a possibility of a nice increase coming, but that also is challenging for us too, because we'll get to that. But basically, what's going to happen is that it's not realistic what they're talking about offering us. We could potentially, I'm getting a step ahead, but we're potentially getting, if the budget goes through, an additional $1.1 million. We've by in all means have been told it's not going to happen, but we can get anywhere from that 1.1 down to being flat to the middle. So right now it's really difficult at this time to kind of feel which way it's going. So PSERS once again has increased, healthcare has increased, and we'll discuss those further. Now, one thing that I wanted to go into a little bit is that ending fund balance of the 6.184. If you look at that other budget that I have that I gave to you, it's the one that has all of the 5 years, and it shows you all that. So if you look down into the lower right, basically what that is the allocation that we have to get to as far as our fund balance for the budget to pass. So with that said, the unassigned fund balance has to be at 8%. So we're looking that if this budget passed as is, it has to be 8% of the budget. $2.6 million is where we would have to come in as our unassigned. The 311,112 is the prepaid medical that we have. It's an automatic that we pay in June. We have to hold money aside for that as being non-spendable. So then that leaves us with some discussion that we're going to have over the next couple months of that $3.2 million of how are we going to allocate that? Are we, one, going to just keep it all in there to use for future PSERS, increased salary increases, additional technology? Or two, when Mr. McDade and I sit down and look at our capital projects plan, how much of that are we going to want to allocate over to the capital projects, which that possibly could be a really smart thing for us to do at this time. But we'll run numbers. We'll approach the facilities committee. We'll talk it out in the finance committee. But I just wanted to bring that up, that that's some discussion that we'll have to do, that the 6.1 is not something that we can put on for the board. So, any questions on that preliminary part of the budget? Okay. All right, you want to go to the next page? So once again, you've seen this slide from me before. What this is it's a great reminder of where does our money come from. So basically 66% of our money is coming at the wallets of our taxpayers and our community members and our businesses. So what that does is it keeps us focused on how we have to be really fiscal on how we're spending their money. We have to be very careful on where we're spending it, because as you see, the other two pies, while they're getting a little bit bigger because of the ESSERS and the state, it's not going to ever get up to that point of where it's going to match the local. So I can go to the next one.
Keith, real
Yep.
quick question. My recollection is that federal is typically around 1%.
It usually is 1 to 2%, yeah.
So this is reflecting the ESSER's money
That's correct. That's just reflecting right now the ESSERs that I have in the budget.
that we've spent.
That we have budgeted right now. So basically, this is what we'll have to discuss in a minute of how we're going to look at the ESSER's money for the budgeting purposes. Next one. This is just a recap of how we take the revenues and we put them into our system. The 6,000s are our school district, local boundary revenues collected. The 7,000s are anything that happens from the Commonwealth PA. The 8,000s are from the federal government, and the 9,000s are for long-term debt and other processes. So that's just, you've seen this before, it's just to kind of remind you that, you know, there is a guideline that we have to follow to be able to report all of our finances. Okay, good. All right, so when we take a look at the revenues, the local revenues in this budget, we're increasing from last year's budget by $717,421 right now. So basically, what that involves is we are noticing that the tax collections are remaining strong and actually getting stronger this year. So I was able to take a little bit and bump it up into the thing. And also, I'm checking with the assessment office, and this for Allegheny County, our assessments went up tremendously. So when I looked at last year's report, and then I looked at this year's report that they send out every January, listing all of our assessed values, it actually increased by $10 million. I don't know how.
Real estate prices.
And that could be a lot of it, because honestly, with you saying that, there has been a lot of transfer tax, a lot more transfer tax, which is, you know, the tax whenever people move, that we really didn't expect. So that very well could be too. So that's a great boost, you know, as far as, you know, the revenues for locals. The state, as you see, the governor's budget. So like I said, it's a good dilemma to have. You know, right now, I didn't want to budget it all the way up, you know, to that $1.1 million that we could possibly get from the state. But I didn't want to keep it flat. I wanted to be kind of a little bit. I tried to think about doing it in the middle, but what we were told was a lot of districts are just upping it 5%, letting it sit there for a couple months, and then as we hear more, you know, as the budget goes on, then we'll adjust it. So most likely it is going to go up again before we get done with the budget process here. And then, yes.
Approximately, what is a mill worth?
The mill, I believe, was 820. 729,748 dollars right now. So right now, you know, with the federal, as you can see, the 60.22, that once again, this is only strictly of what I've budgeted to date, which we can take a look at. Well, we'll look at the budgets next. So if you want to go to the next slide. Basically, what this is now taking and just delving it down into bigger topics. So as you see, our taxes and our delinquent taxes, so basically all the taxes are basically $20.8 million coming into our budget. Considerable amount of money that is in the budget there. Earnings from investments not there yet. And then the other revenue is just our basic our admissions, our rentals, and different things like that, but not much that we can really adjust the growth with it. As far as the state subsidies, I've already gone through that a couple times.
The ESSER's about there, 618. This
Okay.
is, go ahead.
That's exactly what. The 618, what we have to do is there's many schools of thought of how are we going to do this budget and reflect it to show to the boards, to the public, that we have this ESSERS, we're spending this ESSERS. So one of the examples that a lot of the districts that I've been talking to, what they're doing is we're going to go through all of our ESSERS that we just approved in the last couple of months. We're going to decide what is going to be spent next year. We're going to take that money, put it into the budget. Not all of it is in there. A lot of it is in there already, but not all of it. So then what we're going to do is take the remaining amount of money that we have for ESSERS and back off the amount that was budgeted and put that into budgetary reserves. It's going to drive our numbers up. And then on the revenue side is we're going to take that amount of the ESSERS and put it on the revenue side. So basically, for example, if we had $1 million, I budgeted 500. 500 is going to show up in the budget. 500 is going to be down in the budgetary reserve, so there's going to be $1 million in the expenditures, and then we're going to put $1 million up in the revenues. What that's going to do is it's going to show a big spike in our budget, which is explainable by ESSERs. Next year, when we do the same process, you're going to have less. So what it's going to do is it's going to lower the budget amount. So if we're at 33 million, 34 million this year, next year our budget might only be 32 million. And then the following year, it's going to be less as ESSERs gets spent. So basically what it's doing is it's spiking it up, and then you're going to see over the next 2 years it drawing back down to where the regular budget is. It's going to be for paperwork part of it. We're still going to keep it separate as far as my reporting to you. You know, I don't want it to be a difficult process where, you know, we're thinking that, okay, we're at, you know, $36 million, but really, in actuality, we're really 32. So that's one school.
If I
That's
could
what.
ask- If I can ask a quick question, so we're not going to treat it like a grant, where we're recognizing revenue as we're creating an expense to offset.
Right. Yeah, I mean, basically what's going to happen is at the end of the year, that's basically what's going to happen is the total budgeted amount is going to be there. The budgetary reserve is going to drop off the amount that is not available, and then the revenue is going to drop down to what the actual expenditures were. So that's one that I'm still trying to toy with that. It's, yeah, you're increasing it here, but at the end of the year, you're only reporting what you actually spent. So that's going to make a big dip down. So if we look at the way we process things and say, okay, yeah, we're looking at actual budget, then it might not show that spike. So that's what I'm saying. We're trying to see what's the best way. Our organization, PASBO, the upper management group, is trying to get everyone to do it the way I just explained it, by making the budget spike so that it is absolutely explainable. It shows that we have the ESSERS money there. And basically by putting in a budgetary reserve, it doesn't restrict us to that if for some reason we decide that we have an opportunity to do another roofing project or whatever, that we could just move that money out of the budgetary reserve without overspending the budget. So it's one of those accounting nightmares that everybody is facing right now. And honestly, they said there's no good answer to it. There's no right way to do it. There's no wrong way. There's no guidance from the state or the federal government. It's just they want to make sure that we're reporting it on the budget. And so we'll discuss it more in our finance meetings, and it's going to be something that we really have to decide what we're comfortable and especially what you're comfortable as a board of how you want to show it. So that is basically the revenues. Any other questions? Like I said, it's just a big overview. We'll drill down on it. Okay. So
I'm sorry, one last question. The $600,000 for ESSERS, that's for next year's budget?
Next year's budget. That's what we have budgeted as of right now. We have identified right now as what we're going to go and spend.
There's quite a bit more.
Oh, absolutely. It's honestly, I believe we're going to probably be in the neighborhood of probably $2 million.
Right. I was assuming that number
Oh, yeah.
seems small. So.
Yeah, we're
That
meeting,
is small.
Monday, we have a meeting, the three of us have a meeting to talk about the capital improvements. So what capital improvement projects are we going to get accomplished next year? And so that will start to increase that and continue to go through all of our ESSER funds for classroom furniture, other expenditures that we had built into our ESSER funding. That will start to drive that number up. But there again, it's going to drive it up. But then the revenue, one on the revenue, one on the expenditure, balance each other out. The good thing is, as far as the way that we designed our ESSER funding, is we did not put many things in there. It will, as far as our 5-year plan, put us in jeopardy of trying to figure out in 5 years how we're going to pay for the things we put into our ESSER budget. So we were very strategic in the way that we designed the ESSER funds.
And I think it's really important, and we talked about this several times in our discussions of the ESSERs, with the amount of ESSERs and the amount of different areas of the expenditures that it's hitting, it's important that we absolutely keep track of, what we're going to spend in what year, and do the best that we can to just try to keep it so that we don't overlook something and all of a sudden we find out 3 months before, 3 years down the road, we have $7 million to spend. We want to try to front load as much as we can, or not really, I don't want to say front load, but we want to, do what we can and try to even it out throughout the process. So that's really what we're going to have to do. It's going to be a big task, and that's another one of those topics that I'm really going to have to talk probably at the next finance meeting. George.
Keith, you said, if I heard right, in a normal year, the federal government gives us 1 to 2% of our revenue. Is that right?
That is correct.
In a normal.
And,
Okay, with our huge number of ESL students, are they giving us sufficient money to cover this extra?
I would say no.
No.
They're not.
Not traditionally,
Not
but yes, there's
right.
money now.
Oh,
We do-
yeah,
But
but
you're
I'm
asking-
talking
but no,
about
in
a
a
normal
normal
year.
year,
So in 2024, we'll be back to a normal year.
Correct.
Potentially.
And that is always an issue.
And with the, especially with this war, the refugees are going to be coming for years.
Right.
They have
And
to
honestly,
get
this is something
around
we've had that discussion several times.
With whom?
With
us.
amongst ourselves, trying to
I
figure
wonder
out
if our
what we
two
can do.
congressmen and the two senators, U.S. senators, know this,
Right.
that we're not being funded properly.
I think when we've had some of our representatives come meet with us in the last year or two, I think we've had those conversations. So they're aware that.
Did they do anything about it? No,
Yeah.
apparently not.
Right.
But that's exactly what we need to do, is we need to get
We're
it
going to
out
have
to our
to become much
representatives.
more vocal.
Absolutely.
Good news is in the short term, yes, there's money.
Yeah,
Fixes the short
for
term.
the next 2 years.
Right.
Okay. And then comes a class of 2026.
Yeah, a lot of the advocacy efforts that we have it more at the local and state level, that we have a lot of access to our local and state government
Yeah.
representatives who are very interested in public education, lend a good ear to us and listen to what our concerns are. The challenge is getting to your state senators and your congressional representatives. It's a little bit harder to have that advocacy with them directly.
And one thing that I just came back actually from our PASBO seminar, and in our PASBO advocacy directors, they keep constantly saying to us, anytime they're willing to drive over from Harrisburg to sit down to help teach you, sit down with meetings with the representatives. They have talking points for us. So that is definitely one resource that I think that we really are going to need to do, especially because of all the different things, the charter school reform, the property tax reform that they're looking at, all the different things. And honestly, I don't know how many times Mrs. Hoffman and I talked about the CSL, because when you look at the numbers, they're astronomical. And you wonder, how are we going to support it? Because, we can't control the ESL population coming in. We can't turn them away, and we're never going to turn them away. But
Surely we don't want to control it.
right. Any other revenue issues? Okay, so with the objects, this is another one like the 6,000 functions. We have expenditure by object. This is pretty much how I've always showed you the expenditures, because when you break it down in the objects, it breaks it down so that you're seeing, okay, salaries, benefits. You're not looking at a broad instruction and then not knowing, well, if we have spending this much in supplies and instruction, how much are we spending down in maintenance? So by putting it into this sub account, it's going to allow us to easier see and to evaluate. So that's just you can read through it, and it's just a gee whiz information. The next page is the expenditure summary for this budget. I'm not going to go through this too much. The next slide is actually the slide that's a lot better than this. So you can read through it. Everything basically has increased the cost. So when you look at this here, if you look at the bottom two, the blue and the orange, that is our salary and benefits. So the blue and the orange make up 69%. jumping it back and forth. So basically what that is, that's 69% or $22 million of our budget. So that is fixed, that is, not controllable by us. And one thing that's something with this, the wage is up for all staff 4.8%. This is the first time in many, many years that we have every one of our bargaining units under contract. So it makes it so much easier because we know what the costs are. We're able to now budget and be accurate with it. There's no more assumptions of, well, what are we going to do, what are we going to get. So the $22 million is a pretty good reflection of where that is and where it's going to stay. Medical insurance, normally over the last 4, 5, 6 years, has been holding about 4%. COVID's caught up to the consortium, where it's now 8%. I didn't put the dental and the vision on, but those have been notoriously 2%, are now 4%. So the costs are starting to raise. And PCERS, every year they keep saying we're at the end, we're at the peak, but they keep raising it, so they raise it again another 1%. So transportation, the next big cost, 6.8% of budget, so it's $2.2 million is what we're spending right now on our transportation. The next one I have on here is supplies and books, make up 3.4% of our budget. It's on 1.10 million, and basically in here, this is where a lot of our ESSERs are placed. The supplies, we put out a lot of in the budget to put up in the shop. So we're going to be able to support the new classes that we have. We're looking at new furniture up in the shop. And we're also looking at starting a refresh of the technology with the teachers and the staff. So this year, upcoming, we're going to do the high school. And then the next year, we're going to do the elementary school so that we can start a cycle, 5 years down the road, we would refresh them again, or 6 years. And then the big one is the textbook adoption. So we're going to be looking into next year of revamping the math K-8, the science 9-12, and ELA 9-12. So those are a big part of the budget. Those are a big part of the ESSER money that we have used. So that's why the supplies, it's normally not that high as a percentage of the budget, but that number probably definitely will be going up further. Tuition. I'm just going to tell you guys that that's not the right number, wrong percentage. It's actually 9.2% of our budget. Tuition, that's our charter schools. That's our outplaced students that Mrs. Hoffman talked about today. Huge cost on the district. The charter school right now, we have 85 kids in charter schools at a cost of about $1.5 million for us. It's down a little bit from last year. I believe at the peak of last year we were at 94 kids, but it's been holding the last couple months at 85 kids. That's a lot of kids that we really should have here. That's the choice of that parents. So. And then finally the IU services are 2.9% or $1 million. So basically anything that we do with the IU, the Pathfinders, the Sunrise School, Mon Valley School, the OTPT services that they offer to these children that are outplaced. ESL is part of that, and there's a lot of components in there. That's another one of the large expenditures. So, any questions on those? Like I said, it's quick. Not really digging down deep, but
Just a quick point on the charter school. I know the district has made good efforts in the past to try to minimize the number of students that aren't using our own cyber cafe, and I think those have yielded some good results. COVID has made that really challenging, and like the normal business processes are kind of thrown off. But hopefully in the spring, if we can get back to kind of focusing attention on that, and the goal of in the fall having that number shrink even further, that would probably be a great goal.
yeah, just bringing back one or two students, that's a huge savings. Right now, our regular ed students, we're paying $14,000 for those students. And then for the special ed students, I believe it's at $27,000 or $28,000 per student. So yeah, anytime that we can bring someone back, it does save the district.
The proposed legislation that might change that is capping it at like 8 or something like
Cap
that.
it at 8.
9.
Yeah.
And there's ways now that we're going to kind of try to work in the system too, is that with the form that we fill out that sets our rate, we can exclude all of our federal funds. So if, we play it right that, with like taking some of us, like our children's or, different things that are normal expenditures, turn them into federal, even if it's short term, it should reflect in lowering our costs. And a lot of charter schools are nervous about that. They know that, that's the plan of a lot of districts. That, it's the opportunity that we have because we don't have to claim any federal on
Plus,
it.
it's just following the rules.
And it's following the rules. That's right. We're not breaking any rules. All right. Finally, next steps. ESSER's expenditures review. So basically, what we discussed, how are we going to budget, how are we going to look at that, and basically go through what we said. We're going to go through each item and say, okay, this is this year, this is this year, and make sure we get into the budget. Capital projects plan, we talked about that also. We're going to look at it, look and see where we have potential to do a lot of our little work that needs to be done. Right now, in the budget, I do have a transfer to capital projects of $275,000. What that is, that reflects the amount of money from the last capital projects plan that we approved for that year. So every expenditure that we have is able to transfer over. And that's the ideal point of where we want to get to, is that every year we're going to be able to say, this is what for next year we'll cover it with a transfer. The 5-year financial projection. We're going to definitely, we're going to start working on that. So that's going to be probably the next big thing that we're going to do once we start fine-tuning this, is pump everything into the projection model. And then the last thing, the budget timeline. I also added that to you also. Back in December, before all the assessors and everything, and before the state budget, we thought that we would try to be aggressive. I don't believe at this time it's really a good idea for us to try to get this done in May. But basically what it means is that next month we're going to be approving the proposed final budget. So what I'm proposing is that we just go back to a normal. I changed the amounts on there, and we can discuss it at the finance meeting. But basically what it's going to give us, it's going to give us a couple more of these meetings where we can discuss, and then we'll still have plenty of time to be able to get the budget approved.
Given the potential changes in state funding.
That's a big.
There's a lot of assumptions that we would have to build into it, and there's no sense building in assumptions if we have more time to wait to make sure that we know what the state government, what that budget's going to
But if you have our internal numbers figured out, that just puts us that far in
Correct.
advance.
That's exactly right.
So your advanced timeline helps us.
It does.
It helps us. I mean, we're actually very much further ahead than we were in years past. So, and it's going to allow us to really delve into each budget and to fine tune it. So that's what I have. Any other questions? Okay, thanks.
We'll turn to committee reports. Director Apple, any updates for us for Parkway West?
Just a few. We met earlier this month. What day was it? It was the first Tuesday of the month, so I think it was actually first. And a couple of things. Parkway's doing their fish fry on Fridays, which is a tremendous deal. I think it's just a few bucks, and you get enough food for probably 4 people. You can order online, pick that up from the restaurant. Also, they have announced a summer camp for students in grades 5 to 8 who might be interested in exploring what's offered out there at the Career and Technical Center. That'll be on June 21st and 22nd. I'm sure our guidance counselors are aware of that. And finally, staff, the administration out there mentioned that our home boards are welcome to come out there and have a board meeting in their facility, which would include them. And a tour of the facilities. And finally, the budget was passed by all members of the legislature, so it was unanimous. And so that's all I have.
Thank you, Joe. And Joe, speaking of the tour, I do remember, I think it was you and I that went out there, and you gave me the tour 6, 7 years ago. It was impressive, and I don't know that many of our board members have seen it, so maybe it is a good idea to have.
It's changed a lot in those years too.
I'm sure it has.
We've got some new programs out there like diesel mechanics, which is a big deal.
Yeah.
It's a very expensive program to run, but the career path for those mechanics is very.
So maybe that's something.
I think it's a good idea.
So we can talk to Darby about it if you want to do it. It's just down the road.
Thank you. I believe Director Von Schar had to step away, so Pathfinder.
Yes, I have a Pathfinder report that
All right.
I can't answer any questions. So I apologize. But the last Pathfinder meeting was February 15th. Director Von Schar represented us. There were 99 students. One did leave to go to Presley Ridge because there are some additional services there. So now there are 98 students at Pathfinder. The PRIDE program, which is competitive employment, has begun at Pathfinder or continues at Pathfinder, and that includes mock interviews at Pathfinder for students. There are a maximum of 8 students in a room at Pathfinder, and so they're kind of max capacity, I think, right now. And there are 32 school districts represented with 5 consortium members. And probably most importantly, they had a clean audit this time around.
Thank you, Director Kusker.
Yep.
No questions. Shazda, Director Zaletsky's not here. Director Voglione, I don't know if you.
There's no update. We haven't had a meeting since that legal meeting.
Okay.
So,
Thank you. Legislative PSBA, Director Simpson.
Okay, just a couple of things. Okay, so legislative, just wanted to announce that there's a House Education Committee meeting on March 22nd at 9:30 a.m. It's a public hearing on a cyber charter school application renewal process. There will also be a policy committee. We'll have a hearing on rising property taxes in Pennsylvania and how PA charter schools have impacted the increases. And that's hosted by Representative Mary Isaacson, Vice Chair of the Policy Committee, and Representative Joseph Cerisi on Monday, April 4th at noon. And if you are interested in that, you should visit the pahouse.com Policy Committee events page for more information. So that's it for legislative. Would you let me go into foundation?
Please do. Thank
We
you.
actually did have a meeting. It's been a while that
Awesome.
we did it. It had to be Zoom, so there you go. We approved a couple of grants, mini grants. So one was to purchase 2 camera lenses for photojournalism class and yearbook usage, and another was to purchase electronic balance. So there's one for each table in I think the science lab. Also, we talked about sponsoring the musical and about promoting the alumni website and possibly having some alumni to assist with keeping that current and getting the information out there.
And I heard you had a fundraiser in the last quarter, maybe? Was it?
Oh, first thing, oh gosh, that seems like it was so long ago. That was maybe
January?
October, November.
Was it really that
Yeah,
long?
yeah.
Okay, so.
It did well.
I heard it did well,
Yeah. And I heard it was really a lot of fun. I didn't make it to the fundraiser myself, but yeah, and they always have a good time with that, and it is a good fundraiser. So, yes,
Thank
that's
you.
it.
Any other questions for committee reports? If not, we'll move on. Under section 4 miscellaneous, there are 5 items. I'll entertain a motion to approve the following. Number one, the memorandum of understanding between Carleton School District and Andrew Carnegie Free Library and Music Hall and the Grafton Public Library. Number two, the IDA Part B agreement between Carleton School District and the Allegheny Intermediate Unit. Number three, the Chapter 339 K-12 guidance plan as submitted. Number four, the memorandum of understanding between the district and the Secretary of Cafeteria Aides collective bargaining unit agreement. And number five, the fifth amendment to the real estate purchase and sale agreement between the district and Armstrong Development extended to end June 13th, 2022. A motion for those 5 items.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Thank you. Any discussion?
Director Schreiber, I have a couple of things to say about the 339 guidance plan. Just wanted to commend the district on a few different things that are in the plan, both the attention paid to Parkway West and the career opportunities that are paid out of or that are available through Parkway West is really important. Also, the Partner Up program, and I don't know how many of my fellow directors know about the Partner Up program through PNC Bank and several other leading employers. They work with districts, and Carleton is one of them, to identify students who don't have plans to go on to post-secondary education right out of high school. In the junior year of their schooling, then all of the juniors within the district get access to, here are jobs and careers that are available without advanced college education in our region. And in the senior year, then students who don't have that college pathway plan get classes that are taught by local industry leaders, and those students then have the ability to apply for jobs with those business organizations. The business organizations themselves have to commit to having benefits, paying a living wage, and to some sort of professional development plan for those students. So it's a fantastic program that should be in more districts. It's really amazing that Carleton is a part of it. I do want to make sure, too, that when we're thinking about career readiness in the district, that we're thinking more explicitly about teaching students not just to be good citizens, which is what the 339 plan has explicitly in there, but also the thing that businesses are looking for when they're thinking about their future employees is the ability of an employee to be a lifelong learner. Many of the jobs that our kindergartners, first graders, and second graders will have when they graduate from Carleton don't currently exist. And some of them do, but many of them don't. And so getting students kind of prepared and ready for the idea of, I'm going to have to continually learn new skills. I'm going to have to go to school and leave school and go to the workforce and come back into school and maybe have a different career pathway than my grandparents or even my parents. That's what's really important as we start to prepare students for life after high school. I also think being explicit about the fact that career and technical education means college is really important too. Most of the programs over at Parkway are articulated into college credits, so students can graduate from Carleton with significant college credits if they choose one of those pathways at Parkway, and I'd be remiss if I didn't say that. But I think, right now, approving the plan is a great idea. I say this as both a school board director and a workforce development professional, but I do think that there's more that we can do to really explicitly prepare Carleton students to graduate college and career ready when they leave our district, and I'm happy to help with that in any way that I can.
Awesome. Thank you. Any other comments on that?
I would just second that. And the idea that Parkway West and all career technical centers, as a matter of fact, several years ago, the biggest barrier to getting kids to go out there tended to be their parents. They didn't think that they were being successful as parents, apparently. If they would allow their child to go to the Career and Technical Center. And I think we've seen a sea change over the last several years. I know Parkway's enrollment is over 1,000 students right now, and we're talking about what we're going to need to do to possibly expand out there. A few things in the works for that, but and along the lines of the college credits that Director Pushkar was mentioning, most of the programs out there have industry certifications as a part of their graduation. And so students can go right to work on the day they graduate, and that's a pretty powerful motivation.
I would add to that all but 2 of the programs at Parkway West are high priority occupations. So those are occupations that will have 50 or more job openings per year in Allegheny County, and that pay above the median wage. And that's a requirement under state regulations for career and technical programs. So any additional programs that get added will have that requirement as well.
So Susie, thank you for bringing that up. If you're okay with this, I'll proceed with any other questions. We'll proceed with the vote. But if I can bring your point back up under new business and just explore that more, because I think several directors have expressed interest in that topic before. I don't know a tenth of what you know apparently, and so I'd like to pick your brain and just have a conversation.
Yeah, have to.
Okay. Any other questions or comments on that before we vote? Sorry, making a note. Apologize. Okay. If not, then we'll vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Under Section 5, Finance, I'll entertain a motion to approve the following 5 items. Number 1, the financial reports as reflected in the March 2022 financial report packet, February 2022 Treasurer's Report, February 2022 Investment Report, February 2022 Board Summary Report, February 2022 Athletic Fund Report, and the February 2022 Junior Senior High School Activities Fund Report. Item number 2, the bills for the period of check register March 11th, 2022 in the amount of $457,332.28, and the March 4th, 2022 in the amount of $136,062.31. Item number 3, the proposed 2022-23 Allegheny Intermediate Unit Program of Services budget in the amount of $2,243,173. The AIU 3 school district's total contribution to the budget is $1,809,390, and the school district contribution to the program of services budget is estimated to be $19,915 and will be determined by PDE according to the district aid ratio and the weighted average daily membership. Item number 4, to appoint Samuel Macaron as tax collector for the Borough of Rosalind Farms. And item number 5, the 3-year contract extension for the auditing services of Hozak Speck, Mutchell and Wood, LLP for the Carleton School District as attached. Do I have a motion for those 5 items under finance? Moved. Do I have a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Thank you. Any discussion? If not, we'll vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. I don't believe we have anything under personnel, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Student activity?
Nothing.
Nothing. Old business. Any director of any old business they'd like to bring up? Any director of any new business they'd like to bring up?
I did want to, I was hoping we could talk about the strategic planning meeting sometime this spring.
Perfect. Thank you, Director Simsick. I agree. So we've talked about having, now that we hope that COVID has peaked and we're able to focus our attention on academic stuff and student achievement and where the district goes in the future. First of all, is every board member still in agreement that that's a topic worthy of having and the timing is right, big picture-wise?
Yes.
All right, perfect. Schedule-wise, everybody is ridiculously busy. Everybody has these pesky day jobs. What month, like how far in advance do we need to schedule something like that? Thoughts? A month, 2 weeks, 6 weeks?
I want to say no to 2 weeks.
Okay. I thought they would use that.
I think that just kind of depends on what we hope to accomplish. Are we going to ask someone to come and talk to us or anything like that? Or, like we have in the
We've
past.
done that in the
We've had
past.
facilitators.
I think we have our own set of, I think if you poll each one of us, we'd have 2 or 3 or 4 topics that we all think are important as a part of that umbrella. Maybe we maybe we pick a date out X number of weeks and then spend some time to really be thoughtful about how we're assembling the agenda for that, and then we decide if we need a moderator of some sort. What does that moderator do? What are they leading us to? Does that make sense? Is a Saturday, we've done these in the past, 5, 6, 7 years ago, there's a Saturday session, I'll say from 9 to 3 or 8 to 2 or something like that. Is that open to people? Are people willing to do a Saturday? Okay. John? Yes. Okay. So are we thinking April?
I'd aim for probably towards the second half end of April.
Okay. John, do you want to look at the school calendar and maybe sometime this week just send us an email, say, hey, based on your personal schedule and the school calendar and whatever else is going on with the budget, throw out maybe two options and have us pick what works for everyone. Is that?
Yeah.
And then, to your point, or maybe Joe's point or both, maybe start to formulate what are the 2 or 3 things that you think are really important that you'd love us to cover. Maybe we try to get that together in the next 2 weeks and get it to John, and we'll formulate a massive list of things that we want to kind of coalesce it down and have a set of 3 or 4 topics that most of us agree that, hey, we want to cover these things. And then, John, if you want to look at a moderator. So we've done this a couple times in the past. I'm sure each of you have done different things professionally. Sometimes when you have heavy topics like that, it is helpful to have a professional moderator. They're not expensive. It's just a little bit of their time to come in and help us separate out the topics and keep things organized and flowing. So if that's something of interest, John can pull the trigger on finding somebody local to help us do that. Okay. Any other comments, topics, suggestions, structure? Anything else? Good?
Thank you.
All right, cool. Thank you for bringing it up. Appreciate it. Is that pretty good with all those?
Yes.
Yep, very good, very awesome. Okay. Any other new business?
You had some.
I do, yeah. I'm just trying to make sure. Thank you, though. I love what you said. I appreciate what you said. And now that you mentioned the PNC program, I don't know if PNC was the only company, but they were one of the premier partners or whatever. I think we've done this in the past.
What's that?
Was Duquesne Light involved with that for a while too?
Duquesne Light, AHN,
Yeah.
Comcast, Nemacolin, a lot of leading companies in our region, yeah.
Awesome. And I think, multiple members of the board have had this conversation in the past where we recognize that the K-12 system for the last, 30 years has been 40 or 50 years has been geared for college prep, pushing kids to college, which is wonderful for many kids. But I think everybody's recognized we have more kids in college than we need to have in college. We have many jobs that are not requiring a college degree, and some of the kids are missing out on the training that they need to get into those jobs, and they're then accumulating a lot of debt that they don't necessarily need. So,
For degrees that they discover are useless when they get out of college unless they want to go into grad school.
right. So, at a macro level, it feels like we need a reset. We as in the macro, we're not going to be able to change some of the state mandates. But how can we recognize the restrictions that we have, but also get creative in getting around them? And how can we help, at the end of the day, how do we help engage the kids to understand what's out there and what the paths are to get there? And as Joe has said several times, to either remove the stigma or remove the barriers to
It's a culture change.
culture change and barriers. Like there's
Well,
even
it's also
logistical barriers to
Measure
vision.
too, yeah. I mean,
Right.
I think once, college is incredibly expensive, as I don't need to tell you. And, and for kids that, maybe don't feel the need to go to a four-year school to achieve their career goals, or reluctant to assume that debt doesn't want to live. I think that as much as we can do to educate families about the options and really what that looks like on a financial level too. that helps our cause.
I think it's about building relationships with employers too, and so many are looking for employees right now, are ready and willing and want to train them within their own system. So I think the many opportunities we have to interact with the employers, the better.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times kids don't know what's out there unless they have somebody who's doing it come and talk to them about what it's like.
Right. So I think, if nothing else, that might be one of the topics that we include in that session in a couple of weeks. In the meantime, if there are short-term things that we should be doing or thinking about, can I leave it to you to make sure that we're thinking along those lines and seeing those opportunities? Or if anybody else has a passion for that topic, make sure that you're poking us and reminding us and keeping us aware. Is that?
I'm happy to help. And as an anthropology and French double major, you will never hear me malign a liberal arts degree, but 60% of the jobs in the Commonwealth that are coming down the pike need more than a high school diploma, but less than a four-year degree. So we have the time right now is right to talk with employers, to get them to help us figure out exactly what to do and to help parents understand what pathways are available for their children that don't involve significant college debt and do open up huge pathways for opportunity.
So at a minimum, hearing you talk, it reinforces that I know very little on this topic, but apparently you do. So maybe if you're willing to prepare a brief presentation for us in a couple of weeks. Because give us the background, stuff that you already have. Don't make it.
Yeah,
stuff
I
you already
probably
have.
have 5 or 6 that can.
Exactly. But educate us, give us a baseline, and then from that maybe come some good ideas about how we can work around the system, work within the system to help connect. At the end of the day, we're trying to connect kids with what happens after high school. And this is a huge piece of that. And it's not something that the state's asking us to do. It's something that the state is unintentionally encouraging us not to do because of the mandates they put in place around testing and some other things. So how do we do that? So,
Yeah, I'm happy to put something together.
awesome. Any other points on that topic? Any other new business items from the board? Open forum and members of the audience, Mrs. Smith.
Did you guys find a way to help the kids that aren't failing but still need help? Did you guys even talk about trying to find a way to help the kids?
Yes.
Yeah, we're going to post for tutoring sessions beginning in April for additional support after school hours. We have the activity buses that are running that students can capitalize off of. There's many teachers that offer already time during the school day. Unfortunately, a lot of our students are not taking advantage during study halls, before school, after school, those kind of things. But put it into a more formalized process with some after-school tutoring.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Any other open forum questions? Any board member open forum questions? All right, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. We are adjourned. Thank you.